Tony Weber was very happy. She was just promoted to Vice President of Human Resources. She moved into her large, well-appointed office and sat there thinking about how lucky she was. She was a strong motivator and was known for a no-nonsense approach. She used whatever tools were available. Now she reported directly to the president of the corporation. That night at supper she told Fred, her husband of 7 years, about her promotion. She was bubbling over with joy. Fred said, "You deserve it. You worked all sorts of hours to get whatever job you were working on done, and now it has paid off." Tony added, "And now with the increase in pay I am making more than we were taking in when both of us worked." Fred asked, "Now do you suppose you could get me a job there? Now that you are in a position to put the word in the right ear?" She reminded him, "They don't hire immediate family. You know that." Fred lapsed into a sad frame of mind. He had been laid off a month ago due to downsizing. He had looked everywhere for a job with no luck. He heard Tony talking to Joan, her best friend. Joan was a registered nurse who worked for a high-priced surgeon in town. He knew Joan would be very happy for her. Tony hung up the phone and said, "With my raise you can stay home and be a house husband." He asked, "What does a house husband do? Guard the house?" Tony said, "No, a house husband takes care of the house and his wife. You like to cook, so that should be no problem, so all that leaves is the cleaning and shopping and running errands like clothes to the dry cleaners. That sort of stuff." Fred said in a hard voice, "When you see me in a dress you will see me cleaning, not before." Tony was miffed by that statement but held her temper. She said, "At least give it a try. Tomorrow try cleaning the living room. It won't take long and you shouldn't have any trouble doing it. Just give it a try." He retorted, "Didn't you hear what I said?" She dropped the subject and sat quietly. She read the evening paper. She hoped he would change his mind but seriously doubted it. They went to bed, and when he wanted to celebrate her promotion with a little sex she told him she had a headache. The next morning before she left for work she asked him again to try to clean the living room. She told him she was taking Joan for supper to celebrate that night and wouldn't be home until later. He played a round of golf that morning, and in the afternoon he thought about cleaning the living room, then decided he wasn't going to give in. That evening she was telling Joan what Fred had said about cleaning. Joan said it was easy. Just get him into a dress. When Tony said it wouldn't be easy, Joan gave her an idea. Tony returned home and was dismayed to see yesterday's paper still lying on the floor. She picked it up and threw it away. The closer she got to the trash can for the papers for recycling, the madder she got at Fred. She decided she would do as Joan had suggested. The next morning when he awoke, Fred found himself tied spread eagle atop the bed. He couldn't move. When he looked down, all he could see was a cup-like device on his penis with a tube coming out of it. He called for Tony. 5 minutes later Tony came in the bedroom. She said, "Well, good morning. I see you found out you are in a predicament. I will untie you if you agree to do some cleaning around the house today, otherwise I can see no reason for you to get up." He angrily answered, "Just untie me. What do you think you are doing anyway?" She told him, "Until you agree to start doing some cleaning and being the house husband I talked about, you will stay tied where you are. The longer you take to agree, the worse it will be." He said, "I'm not agreeing to anything." She turned and went to her dresser and took out a bra and panties and set them on a chair by the wall, telling him to let her know when he is ready to put them on. She threw the covers over his naked body and walked out. He laid there all day and stewed over how she could do this to him. He tried to move but found he was tied tight. He told himself he would outlast her. That evening she came back in and asked him if he was ready to get up and put his bra and panties on. He said no. She laid a pair of stockings, a garter belt and set a pair of high-heel shoes on the floor by the chair. He could turn his head and see the chair. She left and soon returned. Before he knew it, she was attaching a pair of breast forms to his chest. She said, "You needed something to fill your bra and I figure you might as well get used to them now." He was very angry and said, "Listen, bitch, untie me right now or you will be sorry." He saw her flare her nostrils and the angry look on her face frightened him. She walked out and soon returned. She said, For that last remark you get to be made a little prettier. I am going to paint your nails, and if you know what is good for you, you will not move until I tell you. Do you understand? He just nodded his head that he understood, and she started putting the polish on his fingernails. Then she did his toenails. Then she redid his fingernails and toenails again. Then he saw her put a clear polish on them. When she said she was finished, he told her he was hungry. She left and came back with a large lavender oval-shaped pill, telling him it was a vitamin to keep his strength up. She popped it in his mouth and held a glass of water to his lips so he could swallow it. Then she left and didn't return until it was time to go to bed. He saw her put her nightgown on and leave to sleep in the spare bedroom. He laid there awake, wondering how he could get out of this mess. If only he could get some slack in at least one of his bonds, he would be able to do something. After a half hour of trying, he knew it was useless. The next morning Tony came in and got dressed. She saw he was awake and asked him if he wanted to get up and get dressed to clean the house. He said no. He saw her take a pink slip and a dress out of the closet and place it over the chair. She gave him another pill and asked him if he had changed his mind. He said, "You can forget about it. There is no way you can keep me tied up here forever. So why don't you just untie me?" She said, "If that is going to be your only answer, it is going to be harder than you ever thought it would be. If you agree right now, all you have to do is wear the clothes I have out, otherwise you are going to go into dangerous territory that you don't want to go into." He knew she was not kidding, but his stubborn streak kicked in and he told her to go to hell. As soon as the words were out of his mouth, he knew he shouldn't have said that. He saw her turn abruptly and walk out. She returned, and when she was finished, he was wearing lipstick, mascara, and a shadow. When she was done, she asked him how he liked it. When he opened his mouth to say something to her, she roughly shoved a ball gag into his mouth and buckled it behind his head. She said, "Don't mess your lipstick all over that gag. You better decide to do what I want by the time I get home, or it will be too late to ever return to where things were before." He laid there all day wondering what she meant by it being too late to ever go back. The time went faster than he thought when he heard her come in. She came and stood over him and asked if he was ready to get up and get dressed in his dress. He nodded his head no, and she pulled a corset out of a bag and laid it on the chair. She then produced something he didn't know what it was. She proceeded to do something with his penis and told him to arch his back, which he did. When she was done, she stood over him and he saw the glare in her eyes. She said, "I just put a chastity belt on you. It is a good one that you can wear in the shower or bath. Of course you'll have to sit down to pee and you'll have to wipe yourself like a woman. It is going to be a long time before it comes off, and will be longer the longer you take to agree to what I want. Now, are you going to cooperate and we can get you up and dressed?" He shook his head no. She left, and he was thinking he couldn't take any more of this. He just wanted to get up and move around. He had a Charlie horse in his leg and it wouldn't go away. A half hour later she returned and removed his gag and gave him a pill. He saw that Joan was there also. He blushed at her seeing him like this. Tony said, "Joan has something to say to you. I am done with the easy stuff. She will explain what will happen if you continue to defy what I am asking. By the way, look at what I got for you today." She held up a long brunette wig with lots of curls. It matched his hair color perfectly. He was thinking he was defeated. He knew he was going to give in, but held out to see what Joan was going to say. He saw Joan stand over him. She held a syringe for him to see. She said, "This shot is concentrated estrogen, the first of 7 shots, each given daily. Once it is in you, you will find your body changing into that of a woman. It is permanent, and you will find your penis doesn't work like it did and find yourself for all intents and purposes a woman. Do you want me to give you the first shot?" He said, "No, I don't want that." He heard Tony say, "Are you going to do as I say? I want your promise that you will, and I'll untie you and help you get dressed." He said, "Yes, I promise I'll do the cleaning." Tony said, "No, that isn't all. I want you to promise that you will do everything I say without any backtalk or holding back. You still have some punishment coming for your words the last few days." He said, "Yes, I promise whatever you want." He had another Charlie horse and wanted to move in the worst way. Tony asked, "Do you promise to put on your makeup and a dress every day?" He gave a sigh and said, "Yes, I'll do it. Whatever you say." He felt her untie him. He was grateful as she helped him sit up. With her and Joan's help he took some steps. He was surprised at how weak he felt. 20 minutes later he was fully dressed. He was surprised at the weight on his chest and the way the heels made his legs feel. He walked a little unsteady in the heels, but after 10 minutes he could navigate pretty good. The three of them went downstairs and Tony told him to make something for the three of them to eat. He went into the kitchen and 45 minutes later set a complete meal on the table. They were sitting eating when Joan said, "By the taste of this meal, why don't you see if you can get a job as a chef in one of the supper clubs around here? This food is delicious." He replied, "Thank you. I learned to cook at an early age. My mother was an excellent cook and made sure all of us kids could cook. She made sure we could handle ourselves in the world and the things they didn't teach in school." When Tony heard him say that, she knew the atmosphere was relaxing and she was glad. She added, "There is no end to his talents, but I just have to make sure he uses them. He isn't a bad person, just stubborn as a mule sometimes." They all laughed and continued their meal. When they were done eating, he cleaned up the dishes and put them away. Joan had left saying goodbye to him on her way out. He went in by Tony, who was reading the paper on the couch. He asked her if she would really have let Joan give him the shot. She looked at him and didn't answer it right away. He knew she was thinking how to answer the question. Finally she said, "Yes, I would have. You said some pretty nasty things to me and I was very upset with you. You still have some payback coming, but I'll try to make it so it isn't so bad for you, but don't count on it. You know I can be pretty hard sometimes." He responded, "I know. I just didn't think you would go that far. I guess I learned something from all of this." She asked, "What is that?" "Never ever think that you will back off once you get an idea in your head. I never thought you would do something like this to me." She said, "You pronounced your own punishment when you said about being in a dress. All I did is make you agree to wear it. Now you will wear a dress until I decide you can return to your men's clothes." When it was bedtime, he was surprised when Tony handed him a pink nylon nightgown trimmed with ribbons and lace to wear to bed. She told him it matched his panties. He was amazed at how light it felt on his body. Tony said to him, "Tomorrow I want you to take a long soaking bath, and when you are done I want you to shave all of your hair from your body from the neck down. When you are done with that, powder yourself with the bath powder that is on the counter. The first thing when you get up in the morning I want you to do your makeup. I don't want to see you without lipstick, mascara and eyeshadow. Do you understand?" He told her he understood. He got into bed and wondered what the future would bring. He was surprised at how warm the nightgown was. The next morning he went into the bathroom for his morning thing and saw the makeup on the counter. He applied it as well as he could. He went back into the bedroom and got dressed in the clothes he was wearing the night before. When Tony was up and came into the dining area for breakfast, he set a plate with her usual toasted English muffin with butter and jelly on it and her glass of orange juice in front of her. He sat down to his plain buttered toast and cup of coffee. Tony said, "I expect to see some progress on the house cleaning today. Start wherever you want, but I had better see you did something. Don't forget the bath and the shaving. If you do as you were told, things will go smoothly and we'll be back to the great relationship we had before all of this started." He didn't say anything but sat thinking of what he could do to impress her. After she left for work, he started to clean the kitchen. By noon he had it sparkling. He stood back and admired his work. His legs ached a bit, so after he ate a sandwich with a glass of milk he went to take his bath as Tony had told him. As he sat in the tub he decided to shave what he could get at. He started with his chest. He wasn't real hairy and it went pretty easy. Then he decided to do his legs. It went okay, but he nicked himself twice, drawing blood. He relaxed in the tub and must have fallen asleep because he suddenly woke up and the water was cooler. He got out and finished the shaving. It was touchy around his privates and the chastity belt didn't help. Finally he had everywhere he could reach. He went to get dressed. He was amazed at how different her stockings felt going up his legs. He started to get hard, but the chastity belt made him wince in pain. He now knew he had better not get hard or even try to get hard. The slip felt delightful against his body. He was fully dressed when he did a twirl in front of the full-length mirror. He felt giddy after twirling around a few times. It was mid-afternoon when he was back in the living area. He decided to clean the windows. He had done the outside last week but not the inside. He got to work. By the time he was done, it was time to start supper. He made chicken with his special dressing. When Tony got home, she immediately saw the kitchen was cleaned, and when she looked out the patio door, it looked like there was no glass in it. She was ecstatic. She knew he would do a good job given the chance. He emerged from the bathroom and she told him he did an excellent job so far, and she told him to keep it up. She was carrying 2 bags and he was afraid of what was in them. She put them in the bedroom and came out to eat. She asked him about his day and he told her he was busy all day. She knew he was and told him she was proud of him. He was feeling pretty good about himself. Then Tony said, "You have to do a better job on your makeup. You were too scrimpy on the eyeshadow and too much on the mascara. Your lips look good, but you need to practice more on the rest. Look in the Cosmopolitan magazine at the ads and see how you should look. Read the articles in there to find out what is in and what is out of style. I have a surprise for you after you finish with the dishes." He finished the dishes and went into the living room where Tony was reading the paper. She showed him her picture in the paper that announced her promotion. He could tell she was proud of it. She put the paper down and told him to come with her. In the bedroom, she told him to strip. He did, and she checked his body. She found hair on his back and told him to come into the bathroom with her. She shaved his back and he had forgotten to do his arms. They didn't have much hair, but she did them anyway. He was embarrassed when she shaved his rear, even doing the crack. She was finally satisfied that he was hairless. She took him back to the bedroom. She handed him a pair of black panties with rows of lace all around and he put them on. Then it was a pair of black seam stockings, which she told him to make sure the seam was straight. He got them on okay and fastened them to a black garter belt with the garters threaded through the panties. Next, she had him step into the black corset. He had never worn a corset before. She started lacing him up. She laced him tight, and when he thought he couldn't take a breath, she tightened the laces some more. Finally, she tied the laces off. She handed him a black long line bra that hooked in front. He got it hooked and it overlapped the top PF the corset. Then she helped him put a full petticoat on that was white with black lace trim. Finally, she slid the dress over his head and zipped up the back. He knew it was a maid's uniform. She produced a pair of black heels with 6-inch heels and put them on his feet. He just about fell the first steps he took. He quickly learned to take very short steps. She told him to look at himself in the mirror. He did, and what he saw surprised him. He saw a woman dressed as a maid. He didn't see any trace of a man. Tony said, "Because you called me a bitch when you were mad at me, you no longer are a house husband but rather my maid. I told you there was a payback coming, and this is it. You are going to be my maid and do what maids do. Look here at your other uniform." He looked and saw her holding another short pink uniform with a white petticoat with pink lace trim. She told him she had a pair of pink heels for him to wear with it. He said, "Please dear, don't do this. I am truly sorry I called you those names, but you must realize I was kind of out of it being tied up and unable to move at the time. I thought I did a good job today and you were happy with what I got done." She said, "I am happy with what you did today, but I told you there would be payback and this is it. I expect you to wear your pretty uniform and do the job I want you to do. You agreed to do whatever I said and how I said, so don't give me a hard time about this or I'll have to come up with some other things for you." He knew better than to complain anymore. He tottered into the bathroom to get away from her. He stood there and looked at himself in the mirror. He enjoyed how the petticoat swirled around his legs and actually kind of liked the tightness of the corset, but it could be a little looser. He decided to try to do his makeup a little better. When he walked into the living room, Tony noticed his makeup right away. She told him he looked better, then handed him the Cosmo to read. He sat down and started to look through it. He saw the models, and when he started to get hard fantasizing about them, he started to hurt. He paid more attention to the printed matter after that. At bedtime he was dismayed when Tony told him to leave the corset on to sleep in. She told him to come by her and she tightened the laces some more. He was mighty uncomfortable when he got into bed. He slept soundly even though his breathing was reduced to small breaths. The next morning Tony was up before him. When he awoke she tightened the laces some more. He thought he was getting cut in half. He got dressed and made up and went to make Tony's breakfast. Tony told him to do the laundry and that she wanted it hung outside to get that fresh air smell. He didn't care for the idea of going outside for anything dressed as he was. Tony left for work and he started the laundry. When the first load was done he went and hung it out. He didn't see anyone around so he thought he was safe. He didn't waste any time hanging it up. He breathed easier once he was inside the house. He started cleaning the living room. He had the carpeting done when the second load was done. He was hanging it up feeling pretty confident when he heard Mona Strong call to him. He ignored her as if he didn't hear her, but she didn't give up. She kept calling that she wanted to talk to him. Finally, in desperation, he walked over to where she was standing by the fence. She asked if he was new to their household. He told her no and that he would be around for a while. She didn't show any sign of knowing who he was. He told her he had to get back to work and she turned and walked away. He breathed a big sigh of relief. Back in the house he had to sit down to catch his breath. That was too close for him. He needed something so he finally went and got a soda out of the refrigerator. He settled down and decided he would finish the living room. Taking his soda along he went and started dusting the furniture. It went well and he was surprised at how fast he was done. It was lunchtime but he stuck his head in to see if the last load of laundry was done. It was, so he headed outside to hang it up. He saw the first load was dry so he took it down, and then when he was in the house he folded what had to be folded and hung the rest in the closet. He made himself a cheese sandwich and a bowl of soup for lunch. As he was eating he thought it wasn't bad doing the housework. He had helped his mother when he was small and it now paid off. He was pretty proud of how good a job he was doing. That afternoon he wiped and polished all the woodwork in the house. He had the laundry under control by mid-afternoon and wiping the woodwork turned out to be fun for him. He sang and hummed as he worked. He finished just in time to start supper. He found 2 steaks in the freezer and started to prepare them for the grill. He made 2 salads and put them in the refrigerator until supper, and then when it was time he put 2 large potatoes in the microwave and went out to start the steaks. When Tony got home everything was ready. He put everything on the table and Tony was impressed. She told him he was doing a fantastic job. She noticed that his rear swayed when he walked and the corset gave his hips the look of a woman's hips. His rear stuck out as much as the corset would allow. As they were eating he told her all he had accomplished that day. She was impressed with how well he was taking this change. She said, "You are really doing a good job, but you must change your uniform. You have been wearing that same one for the last 3 days. Tomorrow you better get the lawn cut." "It needs it." He asked, "Can't I at least wear my shirt and slacks for that?" Today Mona Strong was out when I was hanging up clothes and she was so persistent I had to walk over and tell her I had work to do. I don't think she recognized me. Tony said, "You should have asked her in for coffee or something. You have to be a good neighbor, you know." He made a face and she said she was just kidding. He told her she had to get something for supper tomorrow night. She said she didn't feel like going out anymore tonight. He told her maybe she could pick something up when she was on her way home tomorrow. She said, "You can go to the store and get something. It's only 5 minutes away and you know what you like to make, so after you get the dishes done you run to the store." He said, "I can't go out like this. What if someone recognizes me? The cashier is going to question me when I sign a check." "Why can't you go?" She said, "You are the one who is going to go. I'll give you some money so you don't have to cash a check." Now that's the end of it. He knew better than to argue with her. After he had done the dishes she handed him a black purse and told him there was money in it. She told him to fix his makeup before he left. He was at the grocery store and nervous as all get out. He picked up some meat and potatoes for the next evening's meal. He got some frozen vegetables also. He was in line to check out when a man behind him asked him if he was new in the area. The man said he had never seen him before. Fred told him he had just moved into the area. When the man asked for his address, Fred said he didn't give it out to strangers. He made it through the checkout and hurried to his car. He breathed a sigh of relief as he pulled past the front of the store and saw the man just coming out. When he got home, he told Tony all about it. She told him he needed more experience shopping. That night it wasn't as uncomfortable sleeping in the corset. The next morning he felt super when he got up. He actually hummed his favorite tune as he brushed his wig into shape. He was thinking that this wasn't so bad after all. He was starting to really like some aspects of it. After he was fully dressed and made up, he was in the bedroom, and for some unknown reason he sprayed himself with some of Tony's perfume. He sprayed his wrists, cleavage, and behind each ear as he had seen Tony do. He made breakfast and used the fancy dishes from the china cabinet. When Tony saw the dishes, she asked what the special occasion was. He told her, "The special occasion is maybe nothing special to you, but for me it is because I love you. I just feel different today." Tony said, "What is that smell? Do you have some of my perfume on?" Fred replied, "Yes, I hope you are not mad because I used some." Tony said, "No, I am not mad. You look and smell so nice. I am proud of you. I am so proud of you that I will take you out for supper tonight. How does that sound?" He told her, "I would rather not. Someone might recognize me." "Nonsense, no one will recognize you. You don't look anything like you used to. We will go out to celebrate your change." He knew her voice, and that was a voice that he knew better than to argue with. She told him that after the lawn he should go the little strip mall 6 blocks away and go the dress shop there and buy a sexy dress to wear that night. She wrote a note for him to give to the salesperson. She left for work and he started the lawnmower. After 2 rounds around the edge of the front lawn, he couldn't take his heels pushing down into the ground, and it was murder walking on tiptoe. He took his heels off and set them on the porch. He finished the lawn in stocking feet. It was a breeze then. He congratulated himself on his bright idea. He went into the house and took the dirty stockings off and washed them in the bathroom sink, then hung them over the shower curtain to dry. He put on a clean pair, grabbed the purse and checked that there was some money in it, then in case of an emergency he stuck his credit card in also. He decided to change out of his pink maid's outfit, so he put on the dress they had dressed him in the first night. He arrived at the strip mall and was happy to see only a few cars parked there. He parked in front of Sally's Fashion and went in. A woman came up to him and introduced herself as Sally and asked if she could help him. "I am looking for something to go out to dinner in, something maybe a bit sexy but modest at the same time." She led him over to a rack of dresses that had a placard stating 25% off on it. He spied a red one hanging there. He picked the hanger off the rack and asked Sally if she thought it would fit him. She told him the material would stretch to fit him. She led him back to a changing room where he tried it on. It felt tight, but when he stepped out to see how it looked in the 3-way mirror, Sally said, "Wow, it fits like a glove." He ended up getting it, then wondered what shoes he would wear. He went to the shoe store 2 doors down and ended up buying a pair of 3-inch red heels with little red bows on them. When he left the shoe store, he noticed a Western shop next door. Out of curiosity, he decided to see what they had. He entered the store and the first thing he noticed was one wall was solid Western boots. He had never worn cowboy boots ever. Then he saw the racks of clothes from Western shirts to slacks to dresses. He went and looked at the dresses. As he was looking at them, a man came up to him and asked if he could be of service. He told him he was just looking, and the man pointed to where the changing rooms were. He looked at different styles and patterns of dresses in a wide variety of colors. He found one that was black checked with white fringe on it. He took it into the dressing room to try on. It was too big. He could tell that as soon as he put it on. He took it back to the rack. 3 dresses down was a black one with red roses embroidered on it. It had red fringe decoration also on the upper part and on the skirt. He hoped that one would fit as it really caught his eye. It fit and felt great when he had it on. He stepped out and looked in the mirror. He had to have that one. The salesman told him it looked fabulous on him. He told the salesman he would take it. The salesman asked him if he had boots to wear with it. The salesman measured his foot and came with 2 pairs of boots. One was all black with a red edge on the top, the other was red with black trim over the whole boot. The black pair had a 3-inch heel, the red pair a 4-inch heel. He decided he liked the red pair best. When he checked out he knew he didn't have enough cash to pay for it, so he handed the credit card to the salesman. The salesman ran it through without a question. Fred left very happy with all of his purchases. When he was back home he put his purchases in the spare bedroom closet. He didn't want Tony to see them until he was wearing them. He sat down for a late lunch. As he sat there he wondered what was happening to him. Why did he have to have that Western dress? Why was he, a man, so excited about buying a dress for himself? He thought about it for some time. He wondered what Tony was going to say when she saw him in either dress. He wondered why he had spent nearly $200 at the Western store without even thinking about it. He decided he had to talk to Tony about it sometime. He knew when Tony got home she would be ready to go. 45 minutes before she was going to get home he started brushing his wig. He remembered she had a red hairband in her dresser. He decided to borrow it. He got it on and then did his makeup carefully. He wanted it just right. Finally he was satisfied with how he looked and went to put on the dress. He put the dress on and then looked in the mirror. He said to himself, "You are one gorgeous babe." He wished he had a red purse to match his outfit when he remembered Tony had one. He looked in the closet and after looking for some time found the red clutch purse. He was transferring stuff from one purse to the other when he heard Tony call him. He quickly finished and made his grand entrance. Tony looked at him and said, "My lord, you look scrumptious. If I didn't know who you are I would not be able to recognize you. Where did you find that dress? It hugs your curves perfectly. You look sexy as hell. Men will fall at your feet just to be near you." Fred said, "I hope not. I won't know what to do if they do." On the way there Tony suggested he pick a feminine name so she didn't have to call him Fred. He picked Juliet, as that was the name of his first girlfriend in grade school. He didn't think she would mind. Tony suggested he speak in a loud whisper just to be on the safe side with his voice. When they were being shown to their table he noticed a lot of men and women were looking at him. He felt self-conscious about it and was relieved when the host held his chair for him. When the waiter came they ordered, and soon were enjoying a pre-dinner drink and chatting. Tony told him about her day. Then it was his turn. He said, "Today I experienced something different. I saw a dress and had to have it. I didn't look at the price or anything, I just knew I had to have it. That isn't right for a man to want a dress like that." Tony said, "It's perfectly normal for any woman. You just experienced something a lot of women go through. Some more than others. You are finding your feminine side and some of it is going to come out from time to time. I wouldn't worry about it, I think you should rejoice that you can have those feelings." He felt better hearing her tell him that. Then the thought came into his head that she wasn't seeing him as her husband anymore. That bothered him. He asked her what was on tap for the weekend. She told him she planned on doing some shopping tomorrow and maybe Sunday they could go for a picnic somewhere. He noticed the waiter spent what seemed to be a lot of time by their table refilling water glasses that were half full and topping off their coffees. Tony asked, "Juliet, what would you like to do this weekend? Do you have anywhere special you would like to go?" He told her he hadn't thought about it. He said maybe he would go shopping with her tomorrow. She was surprised as he had only gone shopping with her on a Saturday once before, and that was when they were first married. She liked some of the changes in him. Right after their dessert came he finally got the courage to ask, "Dear, how do you see me? Do you see me as your maid or as your husband? It bothers me that you might not see me as your husband. I see you both as my maid but also as my husband. I see you doing little things that I take as being done out of love, the love you have for me as your wife. You are my husband, I haven't forgotten that. I love you as my husband and I like you as my maid. I know it isn't easy for you, but I want you to know I appreciate how you are taking this and I intend to show you how much I appreciate it. I have already started the moves necessary to show you how much I appreciate it, and with luck tomorrow you will know how much I appreciate it. He felt better hearing this, and for the first time he felt sexy and desirable. It shook him that he hadn't noticed the tight fit of his dress before this, but he knew he had felt bothered subconsciously about how Tony saw him. They returned home and Tony told him to go change into something more comfortable while she made a phone call. He went and undressed and put a nightgown on. When he got back with Tony, he was surprised she wasn't reading the paper. She was just sitting there and smiling. She said, "Come here and sit by me. I have plans for this evening and you are part of them." He sat and she kissed him long and hard. Then she said, "For the rest of the evening you are my husband, not my maid. I expect you to act like a husband and do what husbands do." She reached around him and unlocked the chastity belt. She removed it and rubbed his penis. It didn't react or grow. She said, "We'll have to wake him up if we are to do anything tonight. He just isn't used to being out of the cage yet. Give him some time to realize he is free." They cuddled and she suddenly noticed that he was getting hard. It was very slow at first, then it took off and swelled up to what seemed to her bigger than it ever was. They headed for the bedroom and had excellent sex. She noticed he took more time before mounting her than he had ever did before. It was like making love to a new person. Her love for him seemed to grow more and more. They finally fell asleep in each other's arms. Before they fell asleep, she told him he could dress as a man tomorrow. The next morning he was fully awake earlier than he had ever been. He got up and wanted to get dressed. He couldn't button his shirt over his breasts. He finally decided to put on a dress. He selected a navy blue knit dress. He tried a pair of Tony's white sandals that had no backstrap. They fit a little tight, but they would work. He put on a pair of beige mesh thigh-high stockings and soon was all set. He went down for breakfast and was in such deep thought about what Tony had said to him last night that he didn't notice she had joined him. Tony asked, "What are you in such deep thought about?" He snapped back to attention and told her he was just thinking about last night and how enjoyable it was. She asked him why he wasn't wearing a shirt and slacks, and he told her his shirt wouldn't fit over his chest, but he didn't mind if it was okay with her. She told him he looked lovely and soon they were on their way to go shopping. At the mall, the first stop was at a shoe store where they got him a pair of white strappy sandals with a 1-inch heel. These shoes fit him better than the ones he had on, so he was more comfortable walking. They shopped at least a dozen stores without buying anything. They came out of a store and right in front of them was an earring kiosk that advertised free piercing. Tony convinced Juliet without too much talking to get his ears pierced. He ended up getting each ear pierced in 2 places. They left with 6 pair of earrings he would have to wait to wear, as they were dangly ones. It was soon lunchtime, so they went to a place that specialized in salads. They each had a salad and a glass of lemonade. He noticed Tony was glancing at her watch quite often. He asked her about it. She said, "I have an important appointment at 1:30 and I don't want to be late. It shouldn't take long as most of the things are already taken care of." It was 20 minutes before her appointment when they finished eating. She hurried him along to the car. She drove for 15 minutes, finally pulling into a car dealership. He didn't know what was going on. She told him to wait in the car while she set things up. He sat there wondering what was going on. While he was sitting there, he saw a man pull up in a red Camaro convertible and park next to them. He looked at the car and thought it was the perfect car. The top was down and he saw the black leather interior upholstery. He thought how he would love a car like that. Soon Tony came back out and got into the car. She turned toward him and said, "I'm afraid you have to get out. You can't ride home with me." He said, "It's got to be 10 miles home. That's a long way to walk." "What's the matter?" She said, "Well, if you don't want to walk, why don't you take that car next to us? Here are the keys. I love you." He was stunned. He took a good 5 minutes for everything to register, then he took her in his arms and kissed her deeply. He said thank you and that he loved her dearly. He got out and got into his new car. She could see the look on his face, which in itself was thanks enough. She watched as he drove out. She had a feeling of intense love for the driver of that convertible. He felt like he was on a cloud. He was so happy and enjoyed the feeling of the wind blowing through his hair. He arrived home before Tony and sat in the driveway looking over the inside of his car. He couldn't believe it was his. This was an answer to a dream he had had since he got his driver's license. How could she have known it would mean so much to him? Tony pulled into the garage, then came alongside the car on his side. She asked, "Is it okay?" He replied, "It's much better than okay. Thank you for making me the happiest man in the world. Get in, I'll take you for a ride." She got in and they went for an hour ride. Tony saw he was as happy as a dog at the hamburger press. She thought about how lucky she was to have him even with his couple of flaws. She was glad she had gotten him this car. They returned home and he decided to make his marinated chicken on the grill. He knew Tony always liked it and it would be one way to show her his thanks. The supper was a tremendous success. Joan stopped to visit and was invited for supper. She was totally impressed with the chicken. She again pressed him as to why he didn't try to get a job in one of the supper clubs in the area. After supper, the three of them visited and enjoyed some wine. They sat on the patio and took in the cool evening air. Both Tony and him were shocked when Joan said, "I am jealous of you too. You both have such love for each other. I wish I could entertain such love. My ex-husband Eric was such a louse, he never showed me any love except when he was horny, and even then he never mentioned the word love. You two seem to show what love is all about." Neither of them knew what to say to her. Finally he said, "You have to give it a chance. I know your divorce turned you against all men, but you are smart enough to see what kind of man a person is before you commit yourself. Give it a chance, maybe Mr. Right will come along. You'll never know if you don't try. Be yourself and see if he accepts who you are. I am sure there is someone out there for you." That night as they were getting ready for bed, Tony offered to help him get the breast forms off. He declined, saying he had a surprise for her tomorrow. She giggled and wanted it now. He told her she would just have to have patience. She said if she was supposed to have patience she would have been a doctor. They both laughed at her joke. They made exquisite love that night, which left both of them exhausted. The next morning he was up well before her. He made sure his makeup was perfect and his hair well brushed, then he put on the dress he had gotten at the Western shop. He was surprised that it took some practice walking in the boots, but soon was a pro at it. He put a pair of the dangly earrings in, and when he looked in the mirror he was satisfied that he looked more than presentable. When Tony saw him she flipped. She said, "How am I going to look as good as you do? You look great, I will look like Drab Dora next to you." He said, "You'll never look like Drab Dora to me. I don't know why I am so lucky to have a wife like you. I couldn't hope for a better life mate and wife." They ate breakfast and then packed a picnic lunch and headed out in his new convertible. They went to Waterfall State Park and soon were sitting admiring the tallest waterfall, listening to its song and thinking it was a song of love. As they sat there holding hands, they heard a guy say something in a loud voice about lesbians in the park. They covered their mouths as they giggled about it. If he only knew. When they returned home he took the dress off and got undressed completely. Tony helped him get the breast forms off and told him she wanted to see her husband. He showered and then went in and put on a pair of undershorts. They felt strange, nowhere near as soft as the panties he had been wearing. When he was all dressed he was amazed at how rough everything felt. His shoes even felt like heavy blocks on his feet. He told Tony all about this feeling. She laughed and said, "Women like softer and lighter clothes. They caress the skin and make us feel sexy. Men have to feel like they are woodsmen or outdoorsmen or something like that. Their clothes have to make them feel strong, so they are heavier and fit differently." He said, "I hate to say it, but I think I am going to miss the softer clothes. It's funny, at first I was upset to be in women's clothes, then I got to where they might not be so bad, and somewhere along the line I got to where I enjoyed wearing them." She said, Well, I don't see where there is a problem. You can wear them any time you want. He asked, are you still going to look at me as a husband if I am wearing dresses? I love you so much and I don't want to jeopardize that. She told him, I know you love me and I love you no matter what you are wearing. If I didn't love you, I wouldn't have gone through with all of the things I did. Believe it or not, I did it for you as much as me. It turned out so much better than I could ever have expected. You don't have to worry about a thing when it comes to my loving you. All he could say was, thank you, dear, for being my wife and being so understanding. They both knew they would be growing old together and reminiscing about the good times they enjoyed together.